Well, to be the creditor, right? It's a little bit different agreement. Go ahead. Well, that's right. That's right. Right. That's right. You got to start acting as a king. Maxims of law are important. What is a maximum of law? It's something that's been so well decided that it can't be reexamined. That's essentially what it is. Something so well decided it can't be reexamined. Maxims of law have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. No. Not if you're looking for a private account. That's only for the decedents, the dead people. They got to have a number. Look, what you're doing is when you say go into the bank, describe the building for me real quick. The building. Just what's the building look like? It's got some drive-throughs, it's brick and mortar, it's got a little ATM that you go to and a little lobby you walk into up to some tellers, right? That's for the dead people. What about the big skyscraper downtown Dallas that says Wells Fargo at the top, or Chase, or they don't have any ATM machines at that building, do they? These little branches, that's where the dead people go. Now you can use them for convenience once you've already done this. But the private bankers, guys with net worth over $10 million, the private bankers like to hit them up, right? Any NFL players in here? Because they all had private banking accounts. Why? Because they were prospected to put their money there. They got a lot of money. So they put them in private banking accounts, and private bankers manage their accounts, right? But did you know those same private bankers also manage accounts like mine? We walk in with different papers. We don't go in there and say, can I have an application? Do you know what the word application means? It means to apply, which means to beg. To beg for something to be applied. Right? What's a promissory note? Promissory note's money. It just says, I don't have it on me, it's sitting over there, go get it. It's got the account numbers on it and everything, and your signature. And you make it out for what you want to make it out for. Now, if you're buying a $500,000 house and your promissory note's for $500,000, the bank doesn't want to do the labor because you haven't followed the maximum law that every man is worthy of his hire. So what do you make it out for? I'll make it out for $600,000. They get to keep $100,000. He probably splits out with the banking commissions. He gets $50,000 for me walking in the door for 5 minutes and doing a little bit of paperwork for me. They kind of like that. Because I recognized the man was worthy of his hire to do it for me. So I credited it to him with what? Authorization, my signature off my account. We have to start thinking as creditors. And that's going to take a while for you new people to figure out. Because you don't even know the language. I could be up here speaking Russian or something. It's a different language, different words. Okay? Lawyers call it legalese. The different words they use determines the jurist they're under at the time. Okay. All right. Times again.
We got about 10 more minutes, David.
Okay. Man, I got a lot of book to go through. $16 of them. Not all of them. Okay, I want to jump really quick. How many minutes? Okay, I'm going to do this.
About 10 minutes. It'll be 6 o'clock.
All right, I'm going to do this first. For you new people, this is something you got to know. It is the single biggest way the state has a hold on you if you're an adult. This is called an enlightening conversation with a marriage bureau. Okay? So important to hear more than once, too. About 20 years ago, my former wife filed for divorce. We had 7 children, 5 daughters and 2 sons. Our youngest at the time, our second son, was 5 years old. At the time, I prepared a counterclaim to the petition for dissolution her attorney filed in domestic relations court. I met one afternoon with the head of the Maricopa County Superior Court Marriage License Bureau in downtown Phoenix. The Marriage License Bureau was headed by a young woman of about the age of 25. I asked her to explain to me the general and statutory implications of the marriage license. She was very cooperative and called over an assistant, a tall man who at the time was working on an operations manual for internal departmental use. He was a lawyer. She deferred for most technical explanations to her assistant. He walked through the technicalities of the marriage license as it operates in Arizona. He mentioned that marriage licensing is pretty much the same in most of the other states, but there are a few differences. One difference he mentioned was that Arizona was one of 8 western states that are community property states. The other states are common law states, with the exception of Louisiana, which is a Napoleonic Code state. He then explained some of the technicalities of the marriage license. He said, first of all, the marriage license is a secular contract between the parties and the state. The state is a principal party in the contract. The husband and wife are secondary or inferior parties. The secular contract is a 3-way contract between the state as the principal and the husband and wife as the other 2 legs of the contract. He said in the traditional sense of marriage is a covenant between the husband and wife and God, but in the secular contract with the state, reference to God is on a dotted line and not officially considered included in the contract at all. The state creates joinder, the husband, and enjoins with the wife, and God is on a dashed line at the bottom of the dotted line. This is the blueprint of a marriage, state marriage with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. That's the blueprint. Okay. He said if the husband and wife wish to include God as a party in their marriage, that because it's on a dotted line, they will have to add it in their own minds. The state's marriage license is strictly secular. He said further that what he meant by the relationship to God being on a dotted line meant that the state regards any mention of God as irrelevant, even meaningless in his description of the marriage license contract. He said in the traditional religious context, marriage was a covenant between the husband and wife and God, with the husband and wife joined as one. That would be the blueprint for a God marriage. It's that simple. One line, joined together. Husband and wife and God, all joined together. He further mentioned that this religious overtone is recognized by the state by requiring that the marriage must be solemnized by a state official or by a minister of religion that has been deputized by the state to perform the marriage ceremony and make a return of the signed and executed marriage license back to the state. Again, he emphasized that marriage is strictly a secular relationship so far as the state is concerned, and because it is looked upon as a privileged business enterprise, various tax advantages and other political privileges have become attached to the marriage license contract that have nothing at all to do with a marriage as a religious covenant or a bond between God and a man and a woman. In civil law, the marriage is considered to be a for-profit venture or a profit-making venture, even though it may never actually produce a profit while in operation. And as the wife goes out to the local market to produce and purchase foodstuffs and other supplies for the marriage household, she is merely replenishing the stocks of the business. In civil law, the marriage is considered to be a business venture and a for-profit business venture, and as children come into the marriage household, the business venture is considered to have borne fruit. He went on to explain that every contract must have consideration. The state offers consideration in the form of the license itself, the piece of paper, the certificate of marriage. The other part of consideration by the state is the privilege to be regulated by statute. Be regulated by statute. He added that this privilege to be regulated by statute includes all related statutes and all court cases as they're ruled on by the courts, and all statutes and regulations into the future in the years following the commencement of the marriage. He said, in a way, the marriage license contract is a dynamic or flexible, ever-changing contract as time goes along, even though the husband and wife do not realize it. A contract must be entered into knowingly, intelligently, intentionally, and with fully informed consent. Technically, there is no contract with the state. Understand that, because there was no full and honest disclosure of the terms and conditions. Another way to look at the marriage license contract with the state is as a contract of adhesion, a contract of voluntarism, of gift. You voluntarily walked into their office. You voluntarily filled out the forms. You voluntarily paid the fee. You voluntarily gave them your tacit agreement. See? That's why those I do not consent t-shirts are so cool. Right? Such a contract with the state is said to be a specific performance contract as the privileges and duties and responsibilities that attach. Consideration on the part of the husband and wife is the fee paid, and the implied agreement to be subject to the state statutes, rules, and regulations, and all court cases ruled on related to marriage law, family law, children, and property. Property, foreclosure, every foreclosure, if you've ever been married and you have a contract with the state rules on it. He emphasized that this contractual consideration by the bride and groom places them in a definite and defined by law position, inferior and subject to the state. He said very few people realize this. He also said that it is very important to understand that children born into the marriage are considered by law as a contract bearing fruit, meaning the children primarily belong to the state. In this regard, children born to the contract regarded as a contract-bearing fruit, that it is vitally important for parents to understand two doctrines that became established in the United States during the 1930s. The first is the doctrine of parens patriae. The second is the doctrine of in loco parentis. Parens patriae means the state is the parent. The state is the undisclosed true parent. Along this line, a 1930s Arizona Supreme Court case states that parents have no property right in their children and have custody of their children during good behavior at the sufferance of the state. Now, I don't know about you, but that kind of pissed me off. This means that parents may raise their children and maintain custody of their children as long as they don't offend the state. But if they in some manner displease the state can step in at any time and exercise its superior status and take custody and control of its children. The parents are only considered conditional caretakers. That's the doctrine of in loco parentis. He also added a few more technical details. The marriage license is an ongoing contractual relationship with the state. Technically, the marriage license is a business license, allowing the husband and wife in the name of the marriage to enter into contracts with third parties and contract for things such as mortgages and debts. They can get car loans, home mortgages, and installment debts in the name of the marriage because it's not only a secular enterprise, but is looked upon by the state as a privileged business enterprise, as well as a for-profit business enterprise. The marriage contract acquires property throughout its existence and over time is hoped to increase in value. This goes to the legal term limited conditional title right to make a profit or incur loss. The marriage contract bears fruit by adding children. If sometime later the marriage fails and a divorce results, the contract continues in its existence. The divorce is merely a contractual dissolution or amendment of the terms and conditions of the contract. Jurisdiction of the state over the marriage, over the husband and wife, now separated, continues over all aspects of the marriage, over marital property, over children brought into the marriage, over spousal support, child support, visitation, education, health care, etc., etc. The state has a say in it forever. That is why family law and the domestic relations court calls divorce a dissolution of the marriage, because the contract continues in operation, but in an amended or modified form. He also pointed out that the marriage license contract is the strongest, most binding contractual relationship the state has upon its people. At the end of our hour-long meeting, I somewhat humorously asked if other people would come in and ask the same questions that I was asking. The assistant replied that in the many years he had worked there, he was not aware of anyone else asking these questions. He added that he was very glad to see someone interested in the legal implications of the marriage license and the contractual relationship it creates with the state. His boss, the young woman marriage bureau department head, stated, "You have to understand that people who come in here to get a marriage license are in heat. The last thing they want to know is technical, legal, and statutory implications of the marriage license."
Of course.
Anyhow, oops. Yeah, they did. It's still stuck on me? Well, that's where I needed to put it.
Okay, so how much more are you gonna talk about? Cause it's past your time.
Well, if it's past our time, I'll see you tomorrow.
All righty then.
Okay?
So as far as it goes,